Good morning, Melissa. I think it's important you point out those are some of the stickiest issues. The work is still being done. The rubber is meeting the road. It's a crescendo of sorts here in Washington as these cabinet level officials from each side are going to open this last series of meetings before the March deadline and really try to put that pen to paper here. China's delegation is being led by Vice Premier Liu He, but this time he is bestowed with the more senior title Special Envoy by President Xi Jinping, essentially meaning that he's been given the authority to negotiate on President Xi's behalf. The U.S. side is again led by Ambassador Robert Lighthizer. And the question on the table now is, after communicating that March 1st is a firm deadline, what concessions would Lighthizer require to extend that? The U.S. has proposed a 10-item action list, according to my sources. These deliverables are things that could be proven in the short term, like additional purchases by China, and they would be needed by the U.S. side in order to secure this deal or this extension. Reuters is reporting that the two sides are building out these agreements on 6 separate structural issues, although this is not expected to be an easy overnight fix, those memoranda of understanding. In the meantime, though, importers are trying to game out shipments for next week. Trade attorneys say that the White House would need to change the language in the Federal Register at least 3 days in advance of that deadline for it to be effective on March 1st. Otherwise, the implementation of any extension could get costly if there are ships in the water, Melissa, that already have imports that are headed for the U.S. or vice versa. Companies need to figure out exactly what this is going to look like and whether it is indeed going to be a last-minute deal that happens.
In terms of the urging on the part of Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, Kayla, for the Chinese to not devalue the yuan, how important is that, and how would that be enforced, if at all? I mean, how can you ask a country to basically manipulate their currency in not devaluing it?
Right. Well, that is something that the Treasury Secretary has been talking about for months at this point. He was actually on Squawk Box back in August when currency started to bubble up as an issue in these discussions. And he said, we're not going to look for gains on the trade front to try to right-size the U.S. deficit, only to lose those gains if China devalues its currency. So the U.S. side has been pushing for some sort of stable mechanism for the yuan as part of these talks for the last 6 months at this point. There are some currency mechanisms in the U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement. Of course, those economies are very different than China's, but they could put some language in there. However enforceable it would be, unclear to me at this point, but there could be some language about tariffs coming back on or some other sort of penalty if the U.S. believes that China is continuing to manipulate its currency.